Hey there, guess what? If you're a farmer, you can have your low tunnels paid for by the NRCS. They have this cool new program where farmers can get $4 to $5 for each square foot to help with a Quick Hoops low tunnel system, frames and fabric included. It's like free money to help you grow more stuff on your farm. Want to learn more about Quick Hoops and the NRCS program? Click on the link below.
There wasn't really anyone that I knew to reach out to ask questions to. And I didn't know what was required in order for us to break into other markets. I only learned after actually being approached by certain really big customers that we needed to have certain things in place in order to be able to sell to larger distributors. That is something that sometimes I would watch some videos online and be like, oh, there's a kind of slight hint towards that by this person over here. But their focus and their customer base that they're trying to talk to is not really necessarily trying to do things like that. Yeah, I just not knowing a lot of information about the food industry or farming and what is required from a food safe perspective was definitely information that I wish I had. And I knew that I didn't have it, but I didn't know how to get it. And that was really frustrating for me because I felt like there was a lack of confidence involved. And so I didn't do a lot of the steps that kind of got us to this level that we're at right now because I just didn't know if I should take the next step.
So what are some examples there of the requirements or the rules that you learned about on the way, some of which you probably did implement and some maybe that you haven't? Like, what are some key ones that stand out for you?
Just in general, I would say, how are you supposed to clean your environment? What tools are you supposed to use to clean your environment? There was actually one point where we had a student, I don't know what school she was going to, UBC or something like that. And she just reached out to us because she's doing a project for the CDC. And I would like to interview you and get some information from you. And then as part of her project, we actually got on a call with a lot of individuals who are working at the CDC. And they asked us some questions. And in that process, I was like, what does that even mean? They would ask questions like, oh, okay, so you use bleach to sanitize your trays. Is it like food safe bleach or is it like the bleach that you use for your kitchen? And I was like, the bleach that I use for the kitchen? Like, what is food safe bleach? So things like that. And I'm sure that some of those definitions are also unclear, but they knew what they were talking about and we didn't know what we were talking about. And I was like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. It's just things that simple. And as how much am I supposed to use in order to come up with this solution? Because people say things like, oh, use a hydrogen peroxide solution, but it's given how much hydrogen peroxide? Where do I get this hydrogen peroxide? Some people, I'm sure, guaranteed probably go to Shoppers Drug Mart and get hydrogen peroxide off the shelf there and then mix that with something and use way too much water or not enough water or whatever the case may be. They're really basic things that you just don't know when you get started. You don't know. My mom luckily had been a nurse in her past life, so she definitely knew a lot about sanitizing her environment to be able to work in a cleanly environment. But that definitely, there's some basic food safe information that you can get from doing a food safe course. I hadn't done that for many years when we got started. I did have to do it when I was working as a server, but way in the past, but I hadn't renewed it. And, yeah, I just never learned about any of those things. Like, how am I supposed to know that the knife is actually clean enough? Or am I supposed to clean the knife in between this drop and that drop? Or does it matter? I learned only later that there were certain crops that were listed as being high risk crops when it comes to allergies, like mustard, for example. I had no idea about any of that. But there were other things like maybe when you're sprinkling your trays, so you try to keep the mustard separate from the other items, because otherwise you might have mustard growing in your broccoli tray and you're going to harvest mustard into the broccoli boxes. You're not even going to know it necessarily and things like that. So it's a little different from microgreens, but still there are lots of examples of this information that just when I came across it, I was like, I probably should have known that, but where do you find this information? I couldn't find it online anywhere at the time. There is a guide that was created in Alberta that I did find at one point and read through that whole guide. And then going through that guide really got me to think about certain things. In that guide, it actually talks about black bulbs. And you have a cover over the black bulb so that if it smashes, you can catch the glass. What are you going to do? if that does happen, do you have a policy in place to throw all the praise away? Just keeping the environment clean and the crops safe from contamination, and then making sure that you have a system in place to train the staff and make sure that they know what they should and shouldn't do. People do silly things, like put their feet on racks. They need to tie their shoelace or whatever situation they make. So
I think it's interesting because I follow a lot of other microgreens growers on social media, and I see a lot of them doing these things on their social media page for the whole world to see, and they don't even realize they're doing it. It's an interesting gap that I've been looking at for many years in the industry. I wonder, in your case, did not having that knowledge, or how did that prevent your growth?
I think it prevented my growth directly by impacting my level of confidence. Let's say we did get a call from a particular large restaurant chain, and they were looking for a new microgreen grower. And they reached out to us and they came for a visit, and they handed us some paperwork, that was about, you have to work with GFS basically in order to get your product to our restaurants. And then the GFS paperwork was the first clue that I ever got as to what is required in order to be able to sell it to some of these bigger distributors.
Hello, growers. Looking to turn your homestead into a profitable business? Or are you a farmer looking to boost your sales? Check out my book, Sell Everything You Grow. This book is the ultimate guide to choosing the right farm business model that fits your farm, time, and location. Discover which model has the highest profit margins and why diversification is so important. Whether you're selling apples, vegetables, or microgreens, Sell Everything You Grow will help you find your first market or expand into new ones. Get Sell Everything You Grow on Amazon and start selling more today.